Today I'm joined by Mary Printz, a leadership coach who works with high-achieving leaders navigating complexity, pressure, and all those moments when what used to work suddenly feels really heavy. Mary's work focuses less on tactics and more on developing the inner capacity leaders need when the stakes rise. Mary, I'm really glad you're here, and welcome to Retaining Purpose.
Thank you, Randy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. What puts you in this seat with us today?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, as I was in leadership position, and I came to a point where I recognized that I couldn't put in any more effort. I couldn't work any harder. I couldn't prepare anymore. I couldn't care anymore. And these patterns kept surfacing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening here? And so then what I did is I sought out a coach. And this coach happened, to be a part of a Harvard group. And in the process, what I essentially learned is that my own system, my own protective system, which I now refer to as the immune system because through an immunity change coach, is that it was actually preventing me from stepping into the leadership role that I needed to do.
The one you had, you felt it drawing you.
I felt it drawing me.
Yeah.
And so that's really what takes me to where I am today. And so it has been an incredible journey. And I am just so grateful for it, for what it has expanded in me and created greater capacity to lead and to help others do the same.
What were you doing when you just couldn't break the mold?
When I just couldn't break the mold, that was when I was leading as a principal, a school principal.
Yep. So that's your background is education.
Education is my background, definitely. And, was an educational consultant and then moved into administration and of course, many, many years of being a teacher, right?
Yeah.
And I think so often, we have people that really excel in their roles, whatever they're doing in their profession. And then what happens is they get put into leadership. And they get put into leadership and the skills don't necessarily translate.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what I discovered. And so you have to intentionally then develop those skills.
Yeah, and actually, I'm really glad you said that. And it's so often we just assume that the next step for somebody as they're progressing is in a leadership capacity, right? I've said it probably 100 times now. You take a car salesman, make him a manager. He might be the worst manager in the world, but he's the best car salesman in the world, right? So, and often, and I'm sure you're seeing it too, leadership skills are not being taught. They're just expected to be like this osmosis, yet the people we're learning from, a lot of them aren't really good at it either. They haven't been taught, right? So I'm assuming that's similar to what you're seeing out there right now is a little bit leadership soft on the learning side? Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I would say, leadership skills need to be explicitly taught. They need to... Yeah, and it's not just technical skills, right? So there's technical skills that apply to leadership, but more importantly, what we're finding right now, and the research is showing, is these adaptive skills. Right? These skills that really impact the way we think, right? So a technical skill is, it's something where if we have a technical challenge, we can bring in an expert and they can follow a process and a system, and it can be dealt with, in a fairly efficient manner most often.
Yeah.
But then we have these adaptive challenges, and that is where we have to actually look at our thinking. We have to change our thinking, not just our behaviors, but actually take a look at our thinking and say, okay, what are our perceptions? What are our assumptions? What are our hidden commitments or competing commitments that are actually working against the very goal that we say we want to achieve?
Right. And safe to say that often, somebody in a leadership position has, they have a goal, they have a target, they're setting the sail per se, but often they'll be their own worst enemy in that process, correct?
Yes, absolutely. They'll be their own worst enemy, and it's almost like, we're not aware of it, right?
Yeah.
So
self-awareness is lacking in a lot of people.
it is. We're unaware of these things that are these competing commitments that have been established in our lives for, long before likely they started that employment at that place,
yeah.
right? But that's where they're surfacing, and so they need to be addressed. So what we need to take a look at then is, okay, how are we thinking about that? And for me as a leader, I used to think that the best leaders, they had to always have clarity. They had to always have the answers, and they had to have them fast,
yeah.
right? And I took on all this responsibility that I had to handle everything, and that I had to manage perceptions, and that I had to, just sort of be involved in everything and make sure people were feeling comfortable. But then what I discovered in my journey is that if I can really take a look at my thinking and allow and step back, and I know that you've done this, in your position, and step back and allow the other people to actually think, allow them to contribute, allow them to initiate, and allow them to actually struggle a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really is what helps them create greater capacity for them. So then they can step into leadership, more leadership roles.
And start to take ownership of what they're involved in, right?
Yeah, and take responsibility, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's something that, I've talked about in the past is, ownership is that thing where often leaders will think, well, I'm giving you ownership, right? Like, take ownership, please. Mm-hmm. But the environment hasn't been created for that to even be allowed. Right? Mm-hmm. So often it's like we assume, even with leadership positions, that it's this handoff. You're passing the baton. But if the environment and the people haven't been prepped for that, we're setting themselves up for just an epic failure. So we were just talking a little bit before with Amy Edmondson. I know you're an avid fan of mm-hmm. Amy's. Amy does talk a lot about that psychological safety in the workplace, right? In the sense of creating an environment of learning.
Yes.
So when you start working with, and maybe even reflect on your own personal journey, when you start working with somebody in a high-performing leadership role, how much time is initially spent, and I know everything's going to be different, in teaching them what they need to change about themselves before they can ever expect others to change first?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm very fortunate that I have been trained in this system that is really a very efficient system. It gets to the heart of the matter fairly quickly. So, how much time, in the first session, we can map out really what are their assumptions that are blocking their goal.
Right.
So really what we want to do is we want to identify, okay, we have a goal, and I'll just share this one little riddle that Dr. Robert Keegan puts out there, is that, we have 14 frogs sitting on a log.
Yeah.
And 3 decide to jump off. How many are left? Most people are going to say 11.
I'm glad she didn't make me answer that. Because it's a trick.
It is a trick. But because there's often a discrepancy. There's this disparity between what we intend to do and then what we actually do.
Right.
Right. So.
Okay, say the riddle again, because I got to know what I missed here.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even give the punchline. Is that, okay, so if there's 14 frogs sitting on a log.
Yeah.
and 3 say they want to jump off. How many are left?
I missed the word say. Most people would, right?
That's right.
So still 14.
Still 14.
Right.
So there's still 14. So we say we want to achieve this goal. We say we want to, we set out this goal. We commit to working on this goal. But then we can we go through and we identify these behaviors.
Yeah.
What are you actually doing? What's actually showing up? And how are you showing up? And, what are you doing and what are you not doing?
Yep.
Right? Then we take a look at, okay, now let's double click each one of those things.
Sure.
And then when we double click on those and we take a closer look, we can surface there are some actual worries, right? So if I say that, I want to be, let's say, I want to have some of those hard conversations.
Yep.
But then what do is that I'm avoiding them. I am definitely not engaging in them. And I am, beating around the bush, and I am complying, and I'm making sure people stay comfortable. So if I double click on that and I say, okay, what is something that's below that?
Yeah.
Right? Well, I might worry, maybe I'm going to risk the relationship. Maybe they would leave, right? And there's...
Which is uncomfortable for us.
Very, right? And risky.
Yeah, yep.
And so therefore, I am then committed. I am committed to not risking relationships,
right.
Which now is an internal commitment. And it's almost hidden because it's not something that I'm constantly aware of or even thinking about, but it's working in direct opposition to my goal.
Yeah. And it's creating this environment of falsehood in a way. Like the whole relationship is based on, I don't want to say a lie, but not the truth either, right? If we're holding these things back, and we can all safely say that never goes well.
It doesn't. And it creates tension. It creates misalignment. It creates all sorts of things that are unhealthy in our work culture, right? And so, that's why, we talk about the psychological safety. But what we have to understand, too, is that the leaders they have a direct impact and influence on that culture.
Yeah.
Right? If they're willing to surface their assumptions, then what happens, then the rest of their team players will. And when they do that, what happens is it begins to crack things open. Yeah. And then what happens is that you're actually empowering your people, because when you're managing impressions, managing other people's perceptions and making people comfortable, that uses a whole lot of cognitive and emotional energy. Yep. And that's why we hire people. We hire people for their cognitive and emotional energies. But if they're so busy, we even find in high-performing teams, in really strong teams, that most teams are performing a second job in addition to the one you hired them for.
Right.
And that is they're managing perceptions and and impressions and all sorts of other things going on. And so if we can actually release that cognitive and emotional energy that is consuming all of that, then they can have more creative capacities. They can use more creative energy in their work. And that's when you begin to break through and get sustainability and get more innovation and things like that.
So when they're sitting there and they are holding back, they're doing their two jobs, right? Doing the technical and doing this is who I need to be at work. I'm going to manage this persona and make sure everybody thinks I'm good, right? Is the breakthrough in that, from what I'm hearing, the word vulnerability? Is it starting with the leader, opening up that vulnerability conversation so that now all of a sudden they realize that persona can actually be who they really are, and they don't have to be afraid of creating something that they think people want to see.
Right. Yeah, they don't have to manage, their employers' perceptions, or even leaders, whoever perceptions that they're concerned about that might influence them. And vulnerability is huge. And it's part of it. But the other part is that we have to understand we all have blind spots. Right?
Yeah.
And so we can be vulnerable. And you know, when we're coaching, you know, when we are brought into an organization, you know, some organizations will say, I want everyone to work on this goal.
Sure.
So, yes, so that is valuable and important and necessary at times. But we have to understand when we're bringing in someone, are we coaching for compliance or are we coaching for compassion for where they are at in order for them to feel safe enough to be vulnerable?
Yeah.
Right? Appropriately. And so it's interesting. So the biggest breakthrough that we get is when we can help a leader map out their underlying commitments and their assumptions, because we all have them, right? And some of them are more impactful on our organizations, on our families, on our teams, whoever it is, you know, that we're interacting with, than others, of course, right?
Yeah.
And so that is where we get the biggest breakthrough.
That's where the magic happens.
It is.
I got to be honest a minute. I'm like, this is the time of year for us. I'm just hearing what you're saying, and I'm thinking about a meeting I was just at, and the time of year where we're going through seasonal hiring, and everyone I talk to is going through seasonal hiring. And they just bitch, and they bitch, and they bitch about the quality of the people out there. You know, nobody has any experience. Nobody knows what to do. And it literally like sucks the soul out of my body, because I sit there and I go, when are you going to get it? Like the problem, I'm not saying everybody's a diamond in the rough out there.
Right.
We know they aren't, right? But the problem starts with you and your attitude. Like, how do we start shifting that? And maybe it's just because I'm hanging out with a bunch of middle-aged construction guys. I don't know. But if you're listening, you need to change. But how do we begin that change, though, Mary?
Yes.
Like, you know, it's a mindset, and it becomes a habit, and it's just, it doesn't even matter. I haven't seen these guys in 3-4 months. First words out of everybody's mouth is complaining about hiring this year and the weather. It's like, holy moly, like you're just looking for a tall tree and a short rope at this point. So how do we shift away from this?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So we shift away from it, first of all, taking a look at, okay, what is my goal here? My goal is to hire X number of people, you know, with this skill set. And so, you know, so what am I doing? Look at my questioning, looking at the people, where am I advertising, whatever else. But what we want to look at is the type of people, right? And so now what we also want to look at is what are my assumptions going into that interview? Right?
Yeah.
What are and if I can, so we would want to surface those assumptions. Okay, so your assumption is, you know what? There's not good quality people out there.
They're useless. There's assumption number one.
Yeah, right? This generation,
Thank
XYZ.
you. Yes, I just
right?
heard that 2 hours ago.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And yet, you know, recently you just interviewed someone in that generation who is phenomenal.
21 years old.
Yes.
Grabbing the world by the coattails.
They are incredible. And they have, you know, a brilliant skill set that can definitely be applied in, you know, in this work situation. And so what we need to do is we want to take a look at what are the assumptions going in there. And then what we have to do is we do little mini experiments. We want to do safe, incremental ones, because we have to help overturn those assumptions. Right? Because those assumptions are long held.
Big time. Yeah.
You know, for many, many years. And so, you know, people want to turn on a dime, but at the same time, if we don't do it safely, then what happens is not going to be sustainable. It's not going to stick. We need it to stick. So we do it in small incremental ways. And when we do that, it creates so much safety that, you know, this one guy goes, I can't believe it. I just handled that entirely differently than how
Right.
I did before. So, and it was almost like the frog in the boiling pot of water, is that it was so seamless that he didn't say it was any one point.
Right.
Right. And so he just sort of evolved. And that's a beautiful segue into adult development. Mm-hmm. So adult development is how we evolve in our thinking over time. And just like children have developmental stages,
Yep.
so do adults,
Totally.
right?
Ours
And
are usually in decline.
well, we would hope to reverse this.
Just saying.
And so what we want to do is to reverse that. And so we want to actually increase, and we can increase our level of adult development. And that will increase our ability to handle complexity. It will increase our decision making. It will increase our ability to relate, and also have this not being so reliant on external validation, but on our own internal values and core beliefs, right? And thus, that means that we can have capacity to handle difficult conversations, to handle conflict, to handle when people are uncomfortable, and stay in those conversations a little bit longer,
Right.
and create greater understanding. And really, that's when we can help bring people along. And that really helps us as adults, right? And that actually facilitates us in leadership to be able to manage that.
For sure. And what I'm hearing in there is leadership very much is coaching, right? And when you're coaching, you're usually spending more time listening than talking. And I think often a lot of leaders are very much on that extrovert status, and they're used to, you said it earlier, right? Like, you used to having to have the right answers, knowing what to do, knowing what comes next, everything. So often, for those that are in that position, you're used to just like giving direction. And now all of a sudden we're being told, no, like, slow down your mouth and open up your ears a little bit, and let's hear, so we can make even better decisions, not just your decision, right?
Right. And also to be able to hold multiple perspectives.
Right.
Right. So this is my perspective. My perspective is not always the best way,
Yeah.
right? When we can engage in, other stakeholders, what happens then is, more in that situation is better than one, right?
Yeah, more ideas is going to lead to possibly a breakthrough decision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's not just listening. It's more than listening, right? It's actually being able to be objective, and be objective to your own thinking, so that you're not subjected to it, so that, you're not closed down to whatever they're presenting or how they're presenting
And we've
themselves.
all done that, right? Like, we've all been in that room where all of a sudden somebody's talking, and you might as well just flip a switch off. It's like, I'm not even listening anymore.
Yeah. And so what we want to do is to be able to, when we're looking at Gen Z, whoever it is, and we want to look at them with an open perspective, right? What can you bring here? What can you offer here that really will complement what we're doing here? And when I can begin to see that and understand that and take that, maybe it's just a little nugget, but I can see, okay, that little piece right there, that could grow into something bigger, right? And just looking at it from that perspective, I think is very valuable. But I think understanding that as leaders, we need to be able to have that capacity to hold.
Right.
To hold and to sit in the silence, to sit in the uncomfortableness, to sit when, other people are thinking, and allowing them to process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not jump in and fix.
Exactly.
Or shut it down.
Yeah.
Right?
let's talk a little bit more on adult development, because
Yes.
this intrigues me. So, you're right. Child development, it's kind of mapped out, albeit it's changing, of course, but nobody really thinks about adult development. So I made the joke earlier, it's declining. Somewhat, I guess it does as we get
Yes.
older, right? But also at the same time, what should we be doing out there
Yes.
to actually increase our level of learning and our contributions into society today? I can't stand the people who are like, I'm almost 65. I need to retire. I need to do this. Okay, what's next? What's next? Right? Like, what should we start encouraging people to practice in this realm of adult development?
Yeah. And I think, you alluded to something really interesting is that, our adult development doesn't necessarily decline, but our cognitive development declines.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to make that distinction.
Yeah.
But I think our adult development is the way in which we can process and hold our beliefs, our assumptions, our perceptions, and the way in which we process all of that, and the way in which we engage and interact with other people. And so with adult development, it's a developmental process and stages. So in the earliest stages of adult development, it's very black and white thinking. You've encountered them, right?
Yeah.
It's my way or the highway,
Yeah.
And not really open to other ideas. It's sometimes either or thinking.
Yeah.
It's either this or this
that.
thinking.
Yeah.
But really what I say to leaders, I say it's both and more, right?
Yeah.
It's not either or, it's both and more, and relish in that, right? Because it opens up so many more opportunities and possibilities. And so then what we want to do is we want to move beyond that. And then what we can move into the next stage is more or less, and I use Keegan's adult development stages. He has 5 in which he identifies. And the next one is where we're still looking to external, we're influenced by the external environment. Okay. And that is, someone doesn't respond to my text right away. I'm ruminating. It's going through my head. What did I do wrong now? Or after a meeting, what did I say wrong? Or, I wonder what they're thinking about me, or, or peer pressure, you see it all over on social media.
Yeah.
People will take down posts, they'll remove comments, they'll change them, and all sorts of different things are happening. And it's because they are being more influenced by what is happening externally, as opposed to living by their own core values. This is what I firmly believe. And, what you say, I can take it in and I can consider it, but it's not necessarily going to change what I believe, how I perceive myself, and what I'm going to do. Now, and oftentimes, when we're working with managers or teams, a lot of them are in that stage of development.
Right.
But leadership really doesn't start until the next stage, where individuals will self-author their own rules of engagement, per se, is that they'll self-author, this is how I'm going to operate. This is what I value. These are my principles that I stand by. I will stand up for this because this is something I firmly believe in. And they'll hold boundaries regardless of disagreement, regardless of opposition. And and so what happens then is they become, like we call them, solid pillars.
Sure.
Right? You know what? I feel safe with this person because I know exactly where they stand, but they're also willing to be open to other perspectives, other ideas. They're willing to take them in and consider them, right? But at the same time, they're not going to necessarily be influenced by them.
No.
And then there's a step beyond that.
Yeah.
Where there's actual leaders who will surround themselves by people who oppose them, who generally will disagree. Why? Because when you're around someone who's disagreeing with what you're saying, is that it really validates, it really forces you to, okay, this is why I believe what I do, and really forces you to really think through, okay, this is what I believe.
I'm having a little bit of a funny moment in my head where it's like, those are the moments where you walk away and you go, I'm not the dumbest person in the world.
Right.
There's others. Yeah, no, that is interesting though, like intentionally seeking out people that will oppose. That can be an incredibly strong tool to train you in emotional intelligence.
Right, because you need that self-control, that self-management. Okay, I'm taking this in, and it could change my perspective, but it might not.
Right. But you have to be open to it, right?
That's right. And I will consider it.
Right. Yeah.
And does it add value? And but I think, and so, but that's an exceptional few.
Sure.
Okay. Most of them, what we want to see is leaders at this self-authored stage where, they could be in the midst of chaos, but at the same time, they can sit back and they could be objective to it rather than be subjected to it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does for sure. And again, it's kind of like Jedi mind tricks almost.
Yes.
Like, you end up, and I think for those that have accomplished it, and I think I've encountered it a couple of times, people look at you quite funny because it's like they all of a sudden realize like you are soaking things in, and that takes time.
Yes.
And then when all of a sudden the person you're used to simply giving direction is quiet and everyone's staring at them and you're staring back, and then all of a sudden great things come out of it, right? But I think you had said that you need to allow that silent space to exist for a little while and to let things kind of flourish out of that.
Yeah. And, to allow things, like you say, to flourish out of that, but also to just to allow people to think in their own processes, right? And to understand really what it is that is meaningful for them. It's whatever meaning they're making out of it, right?
Yeah.
So because you and I could experience the exact same thing, but the meaning we take from it, we could have an encounter with someone, comes into the room, and the meaning we take from that conversation could be entirely different. But it's because of our own biases. It's because of our own belief system, our own perceptions and assumptions, and how we're taking from it, right?
And so that, with what you said right there, that really then goes into something else that's really important, which is, we talk about internal beliefs, but then we talk about corporate values, right?
Yes.
And company values, and now with that situation you just explained where maybe you're having a different feeling coming out of that, now the question has to become, which one aligns with the values of the organization?
Yes.
Right? Because just because we're different doesn't also mean it's okay here, right? If this doesn't align with that, then, sometimes things have to happen.
Exactly. But we have to allow these moments and these interactions for that to surface.
Right.
Right? Because that does happen, right? But if we're constantly bombarding them with, or inundating them with information or tasks or deliverables or directives, being incredibly directive, then what's going to happen is not going to surface as quickly.
Do you spend time working with some of the people you worked with talking about core values, not just internal, but, external, the businesses they're running or managing? Do you spend a good amount of time on that?
We do. We have to spend a fair amount of time on that because the core values is really, that is the essence of your organization. of your business, whatever it is. And so these are what you stand for, and these is what's meaningful and important for you. This is the essence of your organization. And so you want people to align with that. You want to ensure that your actions, your thinking, your processes are going to be aligned with that.
Yep. Yeah. Look in the mirror, right? Like it does all start with us.
Absolutely.
If we're the leaders. So if we're saying core values are, in our case, community, creativity, integrity, and quality, I better make sure that I'm living up to those too.
Absolutely. Right? Because it will be reflected in whatever you're saying, doing, thinking, right? And that is getting projected not only into the community, but onto your team.
And people can really see through bullshit.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, there's a lot of people that will put it on the wall, put it in a book, they'll talk about it. And then the minute you turn around, they're not doing anything to represent the values that they've brought forward. And it becomes very obvious very quick. And I'm sure you've seen that as well.
And there's a lot of organizations that say people are first.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
A lot say that the people are first. We care about our people and things like that. But yet, are they investing in their people? Because, employees intrinsically, and I know you do this, so this is why I can bring this up, is that employees intrinsically, people want to grow, right? They just want to grow. They want to, grow them as an individual, as a person, right? Everyone wants to better themselves in some way. And when we invest in that, you know what? People will stay longer. Your retention rate increases, and people will actually perform better. And like you say, they're more aligned with the organization or the company, and they're more obviously more loyal and dedicated, and performance increases.
Yeah, and I think investment also can be looked at through many different lenses. Obviously, the wage that they're paid. It can be looked at professional development. It can look at the quality of the equipment or tools that they're getting to use every single day at the job, right? We had a bit of a talk around here when we were going through our seasonal hiring, where we very intentionally go through our hiring. We haven't had to run an ad in a few years now. And that's a challenge we put out to our group, is we need to go find the quality people we want to work here, not hope for them to find us. But what's been interesting in that is then when we come up with the conversation of starting wage, first thing that happens typically is we go right down there. And so this was my first year, actually. I challenged our thinking on it. And I said, if we're assuming we've done our job and done it well, it means we've hired better than average people. So why are we paying them below average wages, right? That's the type of BS people are going to see through. Right. We want the best. We expect the best, but we're not going to treat you the best.
Right.
Right. So that was our bit of an aha moment when it came to kind of getting through that little bit of noise on that is, if you say something, you have to be able to deliver on it.
And it's those little things, that's not just a little thing, but it's those important things that we need to recognize and take into account. Absolutely.
For sure. So with you, so you were in education for a number of years, obviously, if you got to principal stage, right? It doesn't happen overnight. What was your, I guess, internal aha moment that you needed to develop yourself more? Or was it a gradual progression?
Well, I would say it was a gradual progression, but I think there just comes a time, like I said at the beginning, is that, effort stops working at a certain point.
Right.
Right? And you're just like, okay, these patterns are surfacing, different things are happening. And so how can I address this? I've tried this. I've, thrown a whole bunch of money at technical stuff, right? But now, okay, let's take a look at this adaptive development. And there's different forms of adaptive development, right? Personal development. There's lots of different ways of doing that. And so I did some research and I said, okay, I want the most effective, I want the most efficient, and I need it to happen now. Like everybody else.
And why hasn't it yet?
So I got on it, and it did. It turned around fairly quickly. And so, but what it created was these new awarenesses. It created new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and operating, and then performing these little different experiments, overturning these faulty operating assumptions that were really limiting my leadership ability, limiting my capacity, limiting me in so many different ways. And it just really restricted me. And so then it's like the floodgates opened, and it's like, okay, this is far easier now than then, right? And I think it just made such an incredible difference. So the framework for me was what I was looking for.
Right.
You know, and I found one that was incredibly beneficial.
And it helped for sure. How important is for a leader on his own personal growth journey, on their own personal growth journey, how important is reading in that?
Oh, reading is just another form of mentorship, right? Like
I love that, actually. Yeah.
You know, it really is. And, you know, you just glean so much from the reading because you're getting insights into how they're thinking and how they convey these concepts. And, you know, and it is an incredible, important aspect to our journey as leaders.
Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite authors?
Well, obviously Robert Keegan and his work, but Amy Edmondson, Adam Grant, but Robert and Lisa Leahy, doctors Robert Keegan and Lisa Leahy are, you know, their book on immunity to change it's incredible, and it just goes into the deeper reason why we don't do what we need to do. And, you know, they've got a few books out. And, you know, right now I'm into Richard Boyasis. And his book is, you know, he's another founder on the process of change and understanding the concept of creating change, right? Change is far more complex and difficult than people actually realize and think about.
Yeah.
And so when we understand the process of change and all the complexities and aspects and components to it, we really begin to understand really what a fascinating body we have as a human being, you know, and really, really understand that we have far more capacity and capabilities than we could ever imagine.
Do you think that when that light bulb goes off, that change is really hard? That's when people also have a tendency to throw the towel in. Because I think you're right. A lot of people do think, you know, change isn't so bad. It's not that scary. It's not going to be that difficult. We're always very encouraging of others to change around us, right? Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, when we start going down that rabbit hole ourselves, it's like, holy smokes, like this, it is a ton of work, Mary.
It's a ton of work.
Like, and I've seen people start down the path, and then the minute something gets hard, it's like, change ain't. So I don't think it's necessary anymore, right? Mm.
Well, and then they begin to revert to old familiar patterns and behaviors, and then of course that's another setback. So absolutely, I think, you know, change it's a difficult process, but there's ways of doing it. You know, I mean, with all the research out there and all the data and all the frameworks that are available to us now, you know, you need to find one that works for you. Find one that, okay, you know, and really adjust our expectations, right?
Yeah, too true. Yeah.
Adjust our expectations and And really understand that, yeah, this is going to take some time and it's going to take some work. And it always takes more time than we think it's going to take.
Big time.
Right?
Yeah.
And so giving ourselves compassion and grace in the process is massive. And, but I think finding a mentor, a coach, a friend, someone who can speak into that process is an invaluable investment.
Well, I think, being a leader can be very lonely, right?
Yes.
It's lonely at the top, cliched saying. And having somebody to just simply, call it a therapist, call it whatever you want, someone to speak to can be hugely valuable. There's no question about it. What, when it came to helping some of these people get through change, people that you've worked with, encouraging them that, when they hit that first roadblock of this is maybe a little bit harder than I'm willing to put in, what does it look like for you to be able to encourage people through that, to say, I warned you, this wasn't going to be easy. You probably thought it was, and now the rubber's hitting the road, right? How do you motivate people to really keep going and drive through that initial roadblock?
Yeah. Great question. I think, when we map out their goal, their behaviors and their commitments, these hidden commitments and all of a sudden they have these aha, like, wow. And then we look at their assumptions. This is really what is driving your immune system to change, to creating change. I think that often is a motivator for them to say, I did not recognize this was going on. Now I'm aware that it's going on. And now that I'm aware that that's going on, I really want to put a stop to it.
Right.
Right. And so then when we go through, this systematic process of overturning it, every step of the way, it's like I constantly hear this, I didn't realize how hard this was going to be.
Yeah.
And they go, I was literally shaking when I had to do this part. And I said, and then we discuss about, and how did you feel afterwards, and celebrate those little successes, right? Because that's important too along the journey. And, but when they do that, things begin to shift in their mind and in their thinking. And then they become aware of all these other people that they've been engaging and interacting with and where they are at, possibly on, in developmental stages.
Sure.
And then what happens is when you begin, it's like when you see, you can't unsee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And then when you see, it's like all of a sudden you have this incredible compassion for these other people. And that is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Because what it has cracked open in so many leaders is this ability to actually have compassion for these other people that they really, had angst against, had really just, had a difficult time tolerating. And so now they see them through a different lens. And when they do that, it not only changes their interaction, but it changes who they are and how they show up and how they're becoming.
This has my brain going 1,000 different directions right now.
I know, it's so exciting.
Yeah, well, where I think I really notice it too is when you have that aha moment where it's like, okay, I'm getting it now, right? Where I really noticed it for myself was, that this is hard, right? And then when you break through that and you realize the next thing is hard too, and then the next thing is hard too, and you just keep breaking down the walls, right? Small, little incremental steps. Where it brought me is I started to all of a sudden be able to communicate with youth better and young adults better, because now I think as we get older, we remove ourselves from this growth mindset, right?
Yes.
We think we've got there. destination achieved. When we get back into it, now all of a sudden it's like I found myself back in the shoes of the younger generation again, going through all this learning and experience. And the one thing I refuse to say is, this is just common sense. Well, it isn't common sense, right? It maybe was common sense for me with 30 years experience, but it just allowed this compassion to all of a sudden come in and a connection to be able to be made. And so, my brain's just kind of going right now.
Yeah. And that really facilitates healthy work cultures, right? Work environments and effective leaders.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference in so many ways. Yeah.
We've got a 49-year-old here too, and his head just explodes every single day because he just can't, this is the way we do it. That's how he was brought up.
That's right.
And now it's just every day is a struggle for him right now, because it's just he's being pushed and pushed and pushed to learn and grow and do different things and engage others. And it's so much fun to watch when people actually start getting through some of those walls, especially at an older age. It's fun seeing the young ones. It's more fun seeing the ones in the middle age, the older ones.
It is exciting, isn't it? And when you take them to their growth edge, and you just go beyond that growth edge, and you just touch inside of it, and you just give them little bits at a time, it's so much more manageable, and it actually is very exciting for them.
Yeah, it is. And you start to see the energy come up, and you start to see them try it over and over and over. Maybe the next thing that comes in front of them, now they get through it a little bit quicker, right? For sure.
Yeah, and then we can stay more regulated. Right?
Yeah.
In different situations, in challenging circumstances.
Less peaks and valleys, more subtle flow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's life-changing. It's transforming.
What are some of the fun things you're working on right now? What's got you energized?
What's got me energized right now is that now I'm working, I will always work with individuals, but right now I'm working with some teams. And so what we have is a beautiful online tool in which we have access to this tool, and that we take the groups through their own maps together, and we partner them off for accountability teams and different things like that. And they're coming back, and they are so excited,
awesome.
And they're surfacing these faulty operating assumptions. I can't believe this has been running, because it's running really in the background, right? The background of everything that we do and say and how we act and interact. And they're so excited because people they love personal growth.
Yeah.
And so when you see teams doing this, you're like, wow, it's just it's explosive, and it's contagious, and it's exhilarating. I just love it.
That's awesome. And it's fun to be doing things that give us energy, right? So
yes. Yeah.
We need to fill our own cups.
And at the same time, right now I'm working with some people in healthcare, significant leaders in healthcare, and for them because they're in incredibly fast-paced, complex environments, and lots is happening all at the same time, right? Lots of pressure.
Yeah.
And so for them to be able to develop these capacities and to think in greater complexity and to be able to manage these things more effectively and just give them peace and really, I didn't want to use the burnout word, but really to reduce that burnout rate has been really meaningful for me as well.
Well, and I think it's exciting that you can bring in, experiences from other industries, other professions, other people that you've worked with. I think often we think our experiences are unique to us. They really aren't. No. Like a nurse can be experiencing it the same way that a construction foreman can be experiencing it, right?
Absolutely.
And so I love the fact that, they'll get an insight into, your struggles or your challenges. While they may be a little unique to you, they're not unique to the world, right?
To the general population.
Exactly.
Right. People are human, and there's lots of patterns and things that are very common to all of us, right?
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, because I did have an interaction with a project manager.
Okay.
And what happened was it was, some sort of waterway, and and we were doing some simple experiments in order to expand their capacity and just their ability to overturn this assumption that it would be very risky in order to speak up.
Yeah.
And so they have water trucks. You would know this more than I would. They have water trucks to make sure that everything is settled.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so therefore, and the construction company had done it a number of times, what they had originally set. And then this individual had done their measurements, all sorts of other different things, and said, we need to do it one more time.
Right.
Well, there was some tension and conflict. And, and I received a call, and we went through a little bit of process. And you know what? And afterwards, when he had it done again, because it delayed the construction company from whatever they had to do next, it was so affirming for the individual and a real breakthrough moment.
That's awesome.
For that person. And so, so I think it's across sectors. People are people.
It is. And a lot of the problems we're facing, they're complex problems, right?
That's right.
There's multi-factors affecting the outcomes of things we're involved in, right? And we're not in control of them all the time.
That's right.
And if we think we are, we're going to get pretty frustrated day in, day out, every day we go to work. So,
right.
Or home.
That's true, because
it is.
People say they can separate personal and professional,
No.
right? But you can't.
No, I encourage our people not to. Like, I don't want you to separate it, because that means one's going to win and one's going to lose, right? I don't want either one to lose. So let's figure out how to harmonize this and make it all work together.
It's both and more.
Both and more, exactly. Mary, where can people find you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so they can find me at Mary Printz, and it's PRINTZ.com.
Okay.
And and
Perfect.
I would love to connect with.
And you're on
these
LinkedIn.
people. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay, so look up Mary
and
on LinkedIn.
And a friend of Randy's.
There we go. Yeah, I'm all about the LinkedIn lately. So got to build our networks.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So, absolutely.
Good.
There's lots to offer in terms of this coaching framework.
Yeah, love it. Thank you for your time. And I wish you all the best as spring hits here. And I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yes. Thank you, Randy. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Mary.